Hey, here are 5 stupid things I've noticed about the Nativity, just in time for Christmas. Mary and Joseph's bogus journey. The Gospels say that Mary and Joseph lived in Nazareth, but when Mary was just about ready to give birth, they had to travel to Bethlehem to take part in a Roman census that required everyone to return to their ancestral homes. Now, that last bit is almost certainly not true. History does record a Roman census at roughly the time when Jesus might have been born, give or take a few years, but that census didn't require anyone to return to their ancestral homes. That bit was probably added to the story so that Jesus would fulfill 2 supposed prophecies from the Old Testament, one that said the Messiah would be born in Bethlehem, and another that said the Messiah would be called Nazarene. Hence Mary and Joseph's tacked-on sojourn. But they weren't the only ones in the Nativity story to take a road trip. Let's not forget about the Magi. The Bible tells us very little about the so-called 3 wise men, but tradition fills in some of those gaps, telling us that their names were Balthasar, Caspar, and Melchior, and they hailed from Arabia, India, and Persia, respectively. Not that any of that matters. In the story, once they find the baby Jesus, they don't do much other than pay their respects and bestow upon him gifts that no baby could ever possibly use. So why the hell did they trek all that way to Bethlehem in the first place? Well, it's implied in the text and assumed by many modern scholars that the Magi were astrologers, and they were just going where the stars told them to go. Well, one particular star, actually. The Star of Bethlehem. Like the census that supposedly sent Mary and Joseph to Bethlehem, the star that inspired the Magi to hop on their camels and head to Bethlehem, with a stopover at Jerusalem to ask for directions, was almost certainly invented by the authors of the Gospels, specifically the Gospel of St. Matthew, which is the only place where the Star of Bethlehem is actually mentioned. There have been numerous attempts throughout history to associate the Star of Bethlehem with an actual astronomical event, a passing comet, a planetary conjunction of some kind, a supernova, but there's no evidence that this part of the story is based on anything more concrete than the desires of early Christians to depict the birth of Jesus as an event of cosmic importance. Which of course brings us to the manger. See, early Christians wanted the birth of Jesus to be the most momentous thing that had ever happened, but they also wanted Jesus to be humble. That tension between the great and the modest is central to the overall Christ story. Jesus is repeatedly described as having contradictory characteristics: God and man, Lord and servant, foretold by prophecy and born in a stable. As a piece of fiction, it's actually quite fascinating. But taken literally as a supposed history, not so much. For starters, was there no one living in the little town of Bethlehem other than cold-hearted assholes? Are you really telling me nobody had a bed for a woman who was about to give birth? Try the barn was really the best offer they got? Not that it wound up mattering all that much in the end, since the birth of Christ apparently had almost no impact on the people who actually experienced it. Oh, holy night that nobody remembered. Never mind that the Nativity story is entirely absent from 2 of the 4 canonical Gospels. What about the people who heard about it at the time? Did they just immediately forget about it as soon as it was over? This kid's birth was announced by a star. Wise men traveled from far-off lands just to see him. Angels were running around telling people about it. Yet years later, when Jesus begins his adult ministry, it's as if nobody has any idea who the fuck he is. He never opens with, "Hey, remember that star that just appeared all of a sudden in the sky like 30 years ago? Remember that baby that angels were telling shepherds about? Remember the baby that Herod killed all those children to try to get rid of? That was me. I'm that guy." It's almost as if even Jesus didn't know that story. But if that's true, then how do you figure old Matthew and Luke heard about it? The hardest part is only picking 5. Catch you next time. And I realize I've been having a goof for most of this video, but sincerely, to anyone watching who celebrates Christmas, any sort of Christmas, sacred or secular, have a happy one. Hey folks, hope you enjoyed my blasphemous holiday offering here. If you did, please like it, share it, subscribe to the channel if you're not subbed already, and also please consider helping me to make more videos like this by supporting this channel through Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives to become a patron. Thanks for watching.